So I'd like to impart some of the things that to look out for next time, because it's a very expensive mistake that I would like you guys not to make. However, I also took a year off, so when I sold my last company I did very little. I got persuaded to do some mentoring for Innovate UK, so I've actually been out and mentored 29 tech startups, and you get an innate sense of what's right and wrong by doing all that kind of activity. So, I guess finally, I think I've figured out exactly what you need and what you don't need. So here's my 12 top tips. First of all, the biggest thing, absolutely not even close, is invest in the founder. Now, to my cost, I've invested in what's fantastic technology, unbelievably brilliant, but just with an unbelievably lame CEO who could not do anything, procrastinate, who was just awful. So, the key thing is, particularly with SEIS, have they been able to persuade their circle of friends and family to come in on an SEIS round? Because it's the most generous tax you could ever imagine. If they've not even been able to persuade their friends and family, big alarm bell, avoid it like the plague. These are the worst. I've dealt with MBA on consultants. Run to the hills if a consultant wants to do a tech startup, because they've all read their kind of Harvard Business School case studies, which are about 1 billion light years away from what it actually takes to do a tech startup. And one thing I've discovered is they all want to do an IPO, they certainly want to do it in 2 years, and they've not got the resilience. So these guys are an absolute... I once mentored a bunch of doctors, you know, PhD doctors. They're second on the list of terrible CEOs. Are they grounded? So I've only ever done trade sales, and I've done okay. Got a few houses, got a few investments, done okay. But every time I hear a CEO say, hey, we've got to IPO, we're not going to take that 50 million, then that is a bit of an alarm bell, particularly if you're investing, because you want to return on investment, and they want to kind of go all the way to the graveyard, because there are so many companies that thought they were going to IPO and didn't make the cut. Here's quite an important one. I see this a lot. Bob created their website, so they gave Bob 5% of the business. Bob adds diddly squat in terms of value to the company, and yet their cap table is a car crash. So if there's not enough in it for the founder, because guaranteed you're going to get diluted on the way through, what you don't want is him getting down to about 10%, and actually he's not really motivated. So you've really got to be harsh with the cap table. Do not allow them to give away loads of equity to pointless people. And also financials. Before I invest in anything, give it a sanity check. Even if it's on the back of a fact packet, does it actually make sense? I mean, every CEO, me included, have ridiculous forecasts. But actually, you know, just kind of put a slider rule against it and see, does it actually make sense? The companies that I've invested in and I've had my hands on have never gone bust, and I've done okay. The ones where I've let it go and they've run the show, I've lost a fortune. So get involved, become a non-exec director, become an advisor. You might even get paid. But one thing's for sure, you'll certainly understand what's going on and you'll be able to steer them in the right direction. Here's a big one. I hate secretive CEOs. I'm the opposite. I overshare. I've got an investor update site we do every single month. It's got everything you can imagine. The data room, all the files, the folders, every single thing. Why? Because I've got 49 investors. Otherwise I'd get hassled every single day. What are you doing? What's going on? No, you can steer them back to the investor update site. So if they're not sharing, again, what are they hiding? Conduct customer research. Now, again, on my last investment, I wanted to be there at the focus groups. I wanted to see the whites of the eyes of the clients that they were kind of pitching to. I wanted to ask questions myself. Again, get involved in those focus groups. Open up doors for them. Quick and dirty. Here's my all-time horror story. There was a company called Crowdmix. I don't know if anybody knows. They raised more money on a pre-launch, 25 million pre-launch, and never actually launched. They burnt all their cash in 18 months, and I was the fourth investor in on that company. And why? Because they kept navel-gazing. They built the tech, and they realized it wasn't good enough, so they put it in the bin. Wrong. You get an MVP and you get it into the hands of a few customers and you kind of work with it, and you iterate, and you get feedback, and you do it again and again and again. Never ever allow them to kind of sit there creating the most perfect thing, get it out the door quick and dirty. Are they greedy? I always insist, if I'm going to put money in, have they earmarked any in terms of the staff pool? That's a staff and advisors, by the way. If they tell me 5%, that ain't going to cut it. You've got to have at least 10%. And guess what? When you're going through massive recruitment, everybody has to dilute 3% a year, because you're recruiting lots of new people and you want to hire some amazing talent. Just the way it is. Seasoned advisors, I've got 11 advisors, and every single one of them does different things. So if they believe they can go it alone, they're idiots. Because advisors are perfect. These guys are probably retired. You know, they've got a fantastic little black book. They can give seasoned advice. You know, they look great in terms of if you're trying to go out and get money from investors. Advisors are the biggest, best secret in your company as a startup. And do they have a realistic exit plan? And I think one of the things is figure out who actually is going to buy you and get close to them. Try and do some work with them. Try and get cozy with them, because the closer they know you, the easier it is for them to buy you further down the track. So, I've got a couple of minutes left. So, YourKeys, finally, I think I've achieved the nirvana in terms of tech startups. This is a tech platform for new build house developers. And we sit in the prop tech space, which is very hot and sexy, but we're the only guys who are focused on house builders. And we've broken down the 64 steps in the sales process. We accelerate the time it takes to get to exchange. Why is that important? 39% of all house sales collapse. So we actually kind of bring it and accelerate the process. You imagine, you can get in an Uber, spend £10, you can buy something on Amazon, you've got absolute clarity in terms of what's going on. You buy the biggest thing ever in the history of your life, and you've got no visibility. It's a terrible, awful buying experience. So we sit right in the middle of all the stakeholders, and we've got dashboards for estate agents and etc., etc. So we shepherd the process along automatically because we've automated most of the tasks. So as a consequence, further down the track, will there be a need for estate agents? Who knows? 39%. Now, this is the weirdest thing. For the first time ever, this has not been a world of pain in terms of going and getting clients. I've never had this. So we're 2 years in, 15 software developers, big platform, launched last October. We went out and chatted to 52 house builders. Audience participation, how many said no? Not much audience participation. You're cheating, you know. Okay, 1 said no out of 52. So we're in the crazy situation of actually, we've put 26 on a holding pattern because we thought we were only going to get 1 in 4 to say yes, whereas actually we've had almost everyone say yes. So it's a great position to be in, but we've had to say we'll get back to you when we've onboarded these first 27. Great team. I've cherry-picked all the best people that I've ever kind of worked with or invested in or had previous companies with. Dan, my CTO, I've known for 15 years. John, I've known for 5 years, etc. So it's a seasoned team, and there are my advisors down the bottom. So we've got a stand up there. We're raising 1.6 million, pre-money valuation of 7.5 million. We are forecasting astronomical revenues, whether you believe them or not, but it's EIS approved. And we've got through the 2-year hump. So most companies go bust in the first kind of couple of years. We've got through that. We've got a great platform and we've got great traction. I'd love to see you. Thanks very much.